What is going on, sports fans? Welcome to a brand new episode of EBC Sports International. I'm your host tonight, Michael Hudson, coming to you from Seattle, Washington. And as always, before we continue, I have to introduce to all of you our sports panel for tonight. So starting, we have Brian Sansan from Las Vegas. What's going on, man?
What up, Mike? What up, sports world? Let's talk sports. NBA playoffs, basketball is upon us. Let's get to it.
Let's go. Next, we have from the city that never sleeps, especially during the NBA playoff time. Welcome back, PJ Hughes. What's going on, man?
What's up, Mike? What's up, everyone? Yes, I am from New York, but we all know who I'm here for. Let's go.
Ooh, the Miami Heat, baby. Let's go. They will be facing the Atlanta Hawks in the first round. So
can't wait.
News there for everybody. And lastly, from Los Angeles, the city of angels, we have Mark Maranko. What's going on, boss?
Hey, Mike, what's going on? What's up, sports world? Excited to talk NBA, especially for a very exciting time of playoff basketball coming soon.
Yes, sir. As of right now, as we speak, the Clippers are actually playing the Pelicans right now, getting that final 8 seed in the West. So we'll keep everybody posted on that. As always, we want to remind you all that we are by no means experts, but rather a group of friends giving our own opinions about the sports worlds. But before we get into our main topics tonight, for today's show, we do have some updates from the sports world this week. So first, Brian has some NFL news for us. What's going on, B?
Thanks, Mike. So Las Vegas Raiders QB Derek Carr has signed a 3-year extension worth $121.5 million, according to NFL.com. Carr will be earning on average $40.5 million per year with the Raiders, making him the 5th highest paid quarterback in the league. Carr set a franchise season record with 4,804 passing yards in the 2021 season, breaking the previous mark that was set by former Raiders QB Rich Gannon in the 2002 season. Good to elite quarterbacks are hard to come by, and it looks like the Raiders are confident in Carr's performance. Carr stated in his extension press conference, and I quote, "The fact that they keep believing in me and watching the tape and saying, wow, we want you to be here some years and some more time. That means way more to me than any of the other stuff it has to do with. I've only wanted to be a Raider. I told my agent, I'm either going to be a Raider or I'm going to be out playing golf." Carr led the Vegas Raiders to a 10-7 record in the 2021 regular season, but lost to the eventual AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals in the wild card round. The Raiders front office had a busy offseason with additions in star and former college teammate to Carr in wide receiver Devontae Adams from the Green Bay Packers, pass rusher Chandler Jones, cornerback Rock Ya-Sin, and former Bears defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. The Raiders are set for a playoff run with Derek Carr and perhaps the best roster that he's ever played with. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, B. Appreciate it. So next up, we have an injury update as it pertains to Golden State Warriors star Steph Curry and the Dallas Mavericks Luka Doncic. Mark, what's the update?
Thanks, Mike. Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors is currently reported to be playing in the Game 1 of the first round of the NBA playoffs against the Denver Nuggets, led by NBA 2021 MVP Nikola Jokic. Steph suffered a foot injury on March 16th and has not played since then, but has looked terrific in practice and in shoot-around. Trainers and coaches say he still experiences some discomfort on his injured foot, but should be able to make up for it with his MVP-level shooting, playmaking, and IQ with the basketball. Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks was diagnosed with a left calf strain after undergoing an MRI this week and is listed as doubtful for games 1 and 2 of the first round of the playoffs against the Utah Jazz, led by All-Star Donovan Mitchell. Even with this injury heading into the playoffs, the Mavericks are still very solid with a good point guard rotation of Dinwiddie and Brunson, who have shown both capable of leading the team when Doncic is out or is just not feeling it during that game. So that's all I have for updates on those two stars. Back to you, Mike.
So thanks for the update, Mark. So what do you think this is going to do for we'll touch on Steph. You know, Grant, if he does play, do you think he'll be 100%, or do you think it's really going to affect the Warriors' overall success in the first round?
I think the way that the Warriors play, it's a lot of team ball and just trying to be able to get Steph the best shot possible. So yeah, his injury may slow him down, but again, with the system that they have in place, especially with Steve Kerr leading them and giving them the right plays to make it the right time, the right shot will always be there, regardless of whatever speed he's going at.
Totally. And with Doncic, they're saying he may even miss game 2 and maybe even more games. So do you say Utah wins this series because of due to that injury, or do you think the Mavericks can step up and still get the W?
I think the deciding factor of this is definitely Spencer Dinwiddie and his experience when he was leading a Brooklyn Nets team before Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving had joined that team prior. We saw what he did with D'Angelo Russell when they were leading the Brooklyn Nets team to a really good record, and saw the experience that Dinwiddie has being a leader of the team. And so I think that experience, along with how Jalen Brunson is, both of them leading the helm, being able to play off each other, will give the Nuggets a run for their money. The Jazz a run for their money, but most definitely it will also be on how Donovan Mitchell performs and how he can contend with both of those reliable guards.
Totally. Well, I hope Doncic comes back sooner or later, because that's definitely one of the hottest first-round matchups. But we will talk more NBA later in the show. Really appreciate it, Mark. So staying with the NBA, Phoenix Suns head coach Monty Williams won the National Basketball Coaches Association's Coach of the Year for the second year in a row. So the award, this specific award, is named in honor of the late NBCA Executive Director Michael H. Goldberg, and the award is based on a vote from the league's 30 head coaches. So Williams has led the Phoenix Suns to an NBA best 64 wins this season, and they are the current favorite to win the Western Conference in this year's playoffs. So congrats to you, Monty, for 2 years in a row, my man. So that's all the updates we have for this week. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to talk NBA. EBC Sports International will return in a moment. Hey, sports fans, welcome back. I'm Michael Hudson coming at you from Seattle. So now let's talk NBA play-in. So we had some intense matchups these last few days, and I wanted to get the panel's thoughts. But before we get into that, just a quick scoring update. The last play-in game for the A seed, New Orleans is up 18-14 against the LA Clippers in the first quarter. So back to the past play-in games. Mark, we're going to start with you tonight. So which NBA play-in matchup was the most exciting to you, and why?
Definitely the Brooklyn Nets versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. You can see the grit and the grind that the Cleveland Cavaliers showed, especially for them being just in the playoffs this year. We saw them this year as some more of like a rebuild year for them to just try to maybe get a draft pick or two to try to build off their stars like Jared Allen and Darius Garland. But we've seen what kind of star power that they've amassed, especially with their recent run of late and towards the end of the year and after the All-Star break. We've seen Darius Garland show out. We've seen Jared Allen become the big that he is, and how the triple big lineup has been working really well with Lauri Markkanen actually really improving. Evan Mobley being a potential Rookie of the Year candidate is definitely something not to be overlooked. And for them to have such a close game against a star-studded Brooklyn Nets team is definitely shows that type of excitement. And it would have been really nice to have them as the 8th seed to go up against the number 1 seed. But unfortunately, as we saw, that they currently got eliminated by the Hawks. So, but yes, I believe that game was probably the best playing game.
Totally. So, staying with that game, what do you think the Nets did that game in particular to get the W against the Cavs?
For sure, Kyrie wouldn't miss for almost one half. And as a young team, you definitely want to see defensive stops, especially for how defensive heavy they are with their bigs and how known they've been defensively over the course of the season. Just to see Kyrie Irving hit tough shot was definitely demoralizing, but it didn't slow them down. And so I think this is a learning experience for Darius Garland specifically to really try to step up and to be that guy to make those shots in the clutch moment, to be able to potentially be the next Kyrie Irving, or to just to be that guy for that team to make those shots, to keep them close, and to get a win in those types of games. Yeah,
it was wild. I mean, Kyrie he was 11 for 11 the first This is his first shots, and I mean, they were only up. I mean, yeah, Nets were up the whole game, but it seemed like they're up by like 30. But I mean, the Cavs made that huge surge at the end. So, yeah, that was a pretty exciting game. So, Brian, I'm really eager to hear your thoughts. Which of the play-in games were kind of exciting to you, and which one stood out?
So I have to admit that was a really fun game, but I'm going to go on the other side of the conference with the NBA champions, Minnesota Timberwolves.
Whoa!
No, the Clippers-Wolves game was hard fought. And the reason why I say that is it's not for a serious reason. It's really hard to take the Wolves seriously when you have, I don't know if any of you guys saw this, but Patrick Beverley, he was screaming in the stands, throwing his jersey into the crowd like they just won Game 6 of the NBA Finals. I don't know if you saw the parody video that Inside the NBA put out, where they show clips of the post-game celebrations, Patrick Beverley crying, Karl Towns like kissing his girlfriend, backed by We Are the Champions. That has to be one of the funniest videos I have ever seen in the NBA. But I have to give a shout out to that game. Another shout out to the Cavs Nets game, and also the Spurs Pelicans game. Man, Zion, if you leave that team, I don't know what to tell you, because you're leaving a good situation. You got McCollum, you got Ingram, and this organization built this team for you. So really think about leaving to a big franchise. But that's all I have for the play-in games, Mike.
Yeah, when Zion did that 360, man, he looked like he gained about like 60 pounds. Like that was just, I don't know. I mean, I agree with you, man. And their head coach, Willie Green, I mean, super underrated coach. I mean, I would say he's definitely in the top 3. Monty Williams will probably win the coach of the year, but he's definitely up there as far as turning the franchise around in such a short time. Staying with the game that you chose, Minnesota and the Clippers, man. It was so, and from the moment they tipped off the ball, it was just playoff atmosphere. The crowd was into it. It was just super intense. Do you feel that the Minnesota Timberwolves won that game, or do you think the Clippers lost that game?
No. It's so funny you asked that question, because if you asked Russell Westbrook that question, he'd be like, what? But anyway, Minnesota definitely won that game. They fought hard. All of their players, all of their star players showed out, except for Karl Towns, as you know. When their star player, their best player, fouled out, D'Lo came big. Anthony Edwards came big. As a second-year player, putting up 30 points in a play-in game, that is something that you don't want to overlook. Patrick Beverley, as much as people want to hate him every single day, he put in those hustle plays in the fourth quarter that led to those big baskets. So I would say the Wolves won this game.
Yeah, and they're man, Anthony Edwards is like I admit I haven't really seen the Wolves play all year, because I think they had like 0 nationally televised games all year. So this was kind of the first time that they were like on TV for everybody to see, and they were just super fun to watch. And I think for me, the one who's like really grown in their game was D'Angelo Russell. Like he has such a mature game now. I feel like before in the past he used to make kind of boneheaded decisions, but he was really a key to their win the other night. So we're gonna get into it later as far as the first round matchups, but that Memphis Grizzlies Wolves first round, man, that is going to be epic. So we'll keep you guys posted on that. So PJ, wanted to get your thoughts on the play-in games as well. Which games stood out to you, my man?
Actually, the one going on right now, I would have to say the Pelicans versus the Clippers. I thought that was kind of a very interesting one, especially if the Pelicans win, because it'll be like their first time in the playoffs since they've drafted Zion Williams, and Zion's not even playing. So that kind of goes to show you like what they can do with or without Zion. There's always these talks about him wanting to leave and play elsewhere. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think a close runner-up for me would have to be the game that just finished, actually. The Hawks versus the Cavs. As a Heat fan, Miami's waiting to see who they're going to play. Is it going to be the Cavs or the Hawks? For a large portion of the game, it looked like it was going to be the Cavs, which I kind of wanted, just so that Miami can kind of get their feet wet in terms of, Mark mentioned it earlier, playing against some bigs. You have that triple-headed monster, and Miami at some point in time is going to have to deal with bigs, whether it be Milwaukee, or Philly. somewhere down the line, So I thought it'd be a great opportunity for Miami to kind of get their feet wet in terms of how to deal with certain bigs, because Miami's not particularly big at all, with the exception of Dwayne Dedmon. But now we know they're going to be facing the Hawks, which I think is another great test, because unlike the Cavs, the Hawks have a superstar in Trae Young. He's proving that, year in and year out, he can hit the big shots. I mean, he had 6 points in the first half. He dropped 31 in the second. I think actually a little bit more than 31 in the second. So I think Miami is going to learn how to kind of deal with players who can get buckets in large quantities and how to combat that and overcome, that type of play style, because you're going to face it, whether it be Brooklyn, whether it be Milwaukee, or even with Philly. You're going to have star-studded teams that you have to go up against and kind of find a way to maneuver how to overcome large scoring outputs from individual players.
Yeah, totally, man. I totally agree. And sticking with the game you just mentioned, the Hawks game, that victory is huge, because earlier in the game, Clint Capella had a knee injury, looked like a hyperextension, but he didn't come back in the second quarter, and they're already without John Collins. So, I mean, what does this say about the Hawks? I mean, do you think they have a good chance to, I know you probably won't choose them to beat the Heat, but do you think they at least have a chance to grab a couple games from the Heat, just based on how they play, especially without a couple of their core players?
So, looking throughout the course of the year, they played the Heat 4 times. Miami won 3 out of those 4. Going to past years, the Hawks always found a way to get a game here or there from Miami, and we've seen it throughout the course of this year with Miami. They do have those games where they're not clicking right, and I think that's why it's going to be a great test for them, because Atlanta is one of those teams who, if you're not clicking the right way, they're going to take full advantage of that. And I think that's something Miami's going to have to learn how to overcome. So I do think, it's not going to be a sweep. I think the Hawks could easily get a game or 2 from Miami, but ultimately, obviously, I have Miami moving on to the next round.
Fair enough, my man. Fair enough. But Hawks, that game was pretty exciting. I saw that before our show tonight, and every first round matchup is going to be pretty intense. So we'll talk about that more later in the show. Mark, I wanted to get your thoughts about the game that's going on right now. Quick scoring update, actually. New Orleans 30, LA Clippers 22 with 14 seconds left in the first quarter. Mark, I wanted to see what your thoughts were about Zion Williamson. Do you think he's coming back? If he does come back, do you think he helps the Pelicans make a run if they get this W tonight in LA?
I think this is a choice now for Zion to see how, if the Pelicans, and I believe the Pelicans will definitely be the 8th seed with Paul George being out. The way that the Pelicans prove themselves during these playoffs will show how much the team really needs Zion, and Zion would be nice at this point, since we can see CJ McCollum is an experienced playoff leader. Brandon Ingram is a walking bucket, and then the rest of his team supports him very well, especially with the development of Jackson Hayes at that 4th position. We can definitely see that it is a solid team going forward. But for Zion, just being wanting to be there, and I think like someone has said it on the show before, availability is probably the best skill that any player can have. And if he just doesn't want to be there, then that's a choice that he's just gonna have to make. And the team is already prepared to win with or without him on the floor.
Totally. I think, from my perspective, it's kind of like, man, come on. I mean, they specifically built this team around you. I mean, everybody had bought the tickets to see you play. You're the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, and now this is how you treat them. It's kind of like, that's why I think there's maybe something else going on that we don't know about. But we'll see. I think a lot of his workouts, he looks pretty good to me that he can play. So I mean, who knows what's going on? But it seems like they're playing pretty well. Brandon Ingram is just taking over. You have that I think Jose Alvarado. I mean, that guy has such an amazing story. Playing in the G League, undrafted, and he just signed that contract to stay on the team. So that's a pretty inspiring story. Brian, speaking on this game tonight, what do you think the Clippers have to do to win this one? Paul George, late game scratch due to testing positive for COVID-19, so he couldn't play. So a huge blow, especially with Kawhi Leonard already out. So what do you think the Clippers have to do to get the W tonight?
Well, honestly, Mike, I can see the Clippers winning this game. I can see them coming out with the 8th seed. They have proven over and over again that they just want it more than anyone else. And I can predict that these players who have gone through adversity so many times before are going to get into that next gear that not many teams have. If you can remember from earlier this season, they came back from a 35-point deficit, which is a record somewhere, against the Washington Wizards back in January. They even had another 25-point comeback just a few weeks back. So they know how to overcome adversity. And this came out even worse because Paul George is out hours before the game due to COVID. But I can see a combination of these hustle players, Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, even younger players like Amir Coffey going off for 20 or 30. So this will be an entertaining game. I can see the Clippers eking out a win, going to the playoffs with the 8th seed.
Totally. PJ, I want to get your thoughts real quick. Who gets the W tonight, and who's going to match up with the Phoenix Suns first round?
I actually have the Pelicans. I have the Pelicans moving on. I just feel like they're kind of hitting their stride at the right moment, at the right time. The way they close out the season, I think that they're really coming together now that they have, BI back, Brandon Ingram is back. You mentioned Jose Alvarado, fellow New Yorker, so obviously I'm going to support him and his sneaky tactics to get steals here and there. I feel like they're, Mark mentioned it earlier too with CJ McCollum. That guy's solid, man. He's been in situations like this before. Like you can't sleep on CJ. And Mark also mentioned Jackson Hayes. Like that guy, I think he brings a level of energy to this team. And then you have a lot, some of the other rookies, that young guys, they just have like this, Brian said it about the Clippers, there's like an extra gear there. And I feel like when you're younger, you kind of have fresher legs, you're a little bit more excited. Right now they're out to like an 8-point lead, it's the end of the first quarter. If they're able to sustain it, hopefully so. Or does, that bad luck that follows the Clippers around hit them again? I mean, it's already hit with Paul George being out, but we'll see. I mean, Brian made some good points about the Clippers moving on, but right now I have the Pelicans.
Yeah, it's pretty close right now. End of the first quarter, I believe the Pelicans are up by 6, 30-24. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this is just it's going to be a nail biter down the stretch, and two great head coaches, like I mentioned earlier, Willie Green, and then obviously you have Ty Lue. So we'll continue to keep you guys posted on those scores. But great takes, gentlemen. Really do appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to talk about the first round of the NBA playoffs. EBC Sports International will return in a moment. Hey everybody, welcome back to EBC Sports International. I'm your host, Michael Hudson. So a quick update with the 8th seed play-in game. We currently have New Orleans Pelicans 35, Clippers 24 in the second quarter. So for the most part, the first round for the NBA playoffs are set besides this game. As you can see on the graphic here, we have all the matchups pitted up. And as we stated, the Pelicans and Clippers game, the winner of that is going to face the Phoenix Suns in the first round. And the Hawks will be facing Miami in the first round as well. So the playoffs begin this weekend. So just wanted to get the panel's thoughts. So Brian, which matchup are you looking forward to seeing the most in the first round?
So Mike, I have to give you 3 games. In the West, I can't wait to see the Splash Brothers back in playoff action again. It's been too long. It's been too long since we've watched them play postseason basketball. And we get to see them go against the MVP, Nikola Jokic, aka the Big Tipper, aka Big Honey. A lot of talent and skill will be on the court in that series, and I am all for it. I will watch all of the games. Now, the next game goes in the East with the Sixers and the Raptors. I know we have a lot of Raptors fans in the sports crew, so I'm sure they'll love it when I say that the Raptors, they have a chance. They have a chance to upset the Sixers. Harden has lost a step, and it's getting kind of obvious now. You know, his field goal percentage has gone down. Really, he's more of a playmaker rather than a slashing three-point shooter, as he was before when he was with Houston. And this Raptors team, man, you have to love this team, man. It's beautifully assembled. You have players like Fred VanVleet, first-time All-Star, Pascal Siakam, who arguably should be an All-NBA player, and then you have a possible Rookie of the Year in Scotty Barnes. I mean, top to bottom, you have a team that is built for the playoffs. Now, tanking teams, Sacramento Kings, Oklahoma City Thunder, I don't want to name too many teams, but that is how you build a successful franchise after your best player leaves after a championship. Now, the last game that I want to talk about is the Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets. Now, did you know that 538 has the Celtics winning the entire thing, like winning it all? Like, no, they don't have the Brooklyn Nets. They don't even have the Sixers or the Bucks. They have the Celtics winning it all. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because they're finally hitting their stride at the best possible time heading into the playoffs. Jason Tatum is killing it, who's arguably an All-NBA first team player. Jaylen Brown has been consistent the entire year. Really, it was just injuries and COVID that hit them in the beginning of the season. And now finally, they're all healthy. And obviously a big hit with Time Lord being gone, but they have a really good chance at actually winning it all. So I'm excited for these games.
All right. So out of those three matchups you told me, which one puts you on the edge of your seat the most?
The one that will put me on the edge, I would probably have to give it to the Celtics and the Nets, because you probably have the most talent and the most to prove in the Celtics and the Nets. The Celtics, they've kept their core for so long now. They've gone through these changes, some weird ones, where they had players like Kemba Walker on the team. They had Kyrie Irving on the team. That super team that they had 4 years ago when they signed Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward, and they looked like they were an unbeatable squad. I think now is, they don't want to say it, but this might be a make or break season before someone, decides to leave the team to go to greener pastures. So the Celtics have a lot to prove in this series, especially if they go up against a team who had a former player in Kyrie Irving with the Nets. And the Nets have a lot to prove too, because Kevin Durant, man, you left the Warriors for this team. You left a 73-9 team to go make up your own team, to play with your friends, Kyrie Irving, even DeAndre Jordan for some reason. So it's going to be on you whether or not you want to win a championship with this team. So definitely this series.
Yeah, man, that's going to be, man, that is going to be exciting, because obviously you have Durant, Kyrie Irving. Celtics, I believe they're the number one ranked defensive team in the NBA. So it's going to be incredible to see where that series goes. PJ, wanted to get your thoughts on first round matchups in NBA playoffs this year. Which series intrigues you the most?
It might be a little bit boring and a little bit redundant, but I also had Brooklyn and Boston. I feel like for a first round matchup, you have KD, Kyrie versus Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Like that's a nasty first round matchup to start off the playoffs. I think it'll be really interesting, mainly because of the points that Brian made. We saw early on in the season where the Brooklyn Nets destroyed the Boston Celtics when the Celtics were having that rough patch there. And what was the first thing that the Celtics do? They run over to the Nets bench, they embrace Kyrie Irving, give him a hug, and there's all this talk about the Celtics are too soft, they're not going to be successful this year. They're too lovey. They don't have a voice in the locker room. They don't have a leader. And then what happens, especially after the trade deadline, all of a sudden they go on a tear. Defensively, offensively, everything starts to click. They have an identity now. They know exactly who they are. They're not going to take anything from anybody. And I think they're one of the teams, you could kind of make the argument Milwaukee didn't want to face Brooklyn in the first round, which is why Giannis sat out that last game. But you could also tell, like, it goes to show you the type of characters that the Celtics have, where they wanted that second seed, knowing full well that they could face the Brooklyn Nets. Like, they want that matchup. And quite frankly, I do think that the Boston Celtics are going to beat the Brooklyn Nets. Now, aside from that, you know, if I had to pick a game that I'm looking forward, or a series that I'm looking forward to seeing, it would have to be the Timberwolves versus the Grizzlies. I mean, two teams that are gritty, that grind, that don't back down from anybody. You have the Timberwolves, who are like a team full of irrational, overly confident players that want to prove themselves. And then you also have the same thing on the Memphis Grizzlies side. Like, what team goes, 29-3 without their superstar? The Memphis Grizzlies. So I think that series is going to be exciting to watch. Those are the two that I'm really keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, that's going to be, man, Ja Morant and Anthony Edwards. That's going to be dunk contests all over the place. It's going to be so wild. It's interesting that, no one's mentioned the Bucks and the Bulls. No, I'm just kidding. That is going to be a sweep like crazy. Sorry, Jolty, if you're watching this. I know how much he loves DeMar DeRozan. Mark, wanted to get your thoughts on the first round as well. What series kind of stands out to you?
I agree with PJ when he talks about the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm excited to see how Ja Morant deals with Patrick Beverley, in my honest opinion. I want to see Ja Morant absolutely destroy Patrick Beverley and make him not play basketball ever again. I'm joking. But with a guy like Patrick Beverley, who wouldn't want? What kind of star wouldn't want to go at that? To prove and make his mark in the league, especially as someone who's been considered the next coming of Derrick Rose, right? And to have that MVP level type of play at his age already, and so this is his chance to show the league that he's on the come up. He's here, even though he's already there. And so, even though I do believe that the Sixers and Raptors game will be an exciting series to watch, and I believe that Philly will win 9-5. I really do think that Grizzlies versus Timberwolves game will be like a reminiscent of the old school grit and grind Grizzlies for whenever they play somebody, and it's just hard nose bully ball all the way.
Oh yeah, man. Besides, Morant and Beverly, Edwards, D'Angelo Russell. I mean, I think the underrated matchup is Jaren Jackson and Carl Anthony Towns. That is going to be one heck of a matchup. And I wouldn't be surprised if this went 7 games, just because they really, I would say Memphis is probably the better defensive team and can shoot the three a little better. But I think as far as athleticism, like overall athleticism, I think Timberwolves are just right there with them. So that's going to be crazy to watch, super exciting, and their playoff start tomorrow. For me, I think the one that excites me the most, obviously, you have the Boston and Nets, you have Minnesota, and you have Memphis. But for me, if Luka was healthy, I think the Utah and Mavericks series would be pretty interesting. And I'd say that because, obviously you have Donovan Mitchell against Luka, but you just have like two grinded out teams that just love playing the half court, and they're just very, very high IQ teams that are really good at moving the ball around. And obviously you have the matchups down low with Gobert, you have Boban, you have all these guys that are down there. So that's going to be, for me, pretty lopsided. If Luka's out, it's going to be Utah all day. So I wouldn't be surprised with that. Brian, going back to you, which team or which series do you feel has the best chance to have an upset out of all the series in the first round?
The best chance, the Bucks and the Bulls. I'm just kidding. No, not again. The best chance, I would have to give it to the Raptors Sixers. When you look at how the Sixers roster is structured, they rely heavily on star power. They let go of a lot of their supporting cast in Seth Curry and Andre Drummond in exchange for what they thought was a superstar in their prime. But what we can see and what we've seen before with Harden, he can't deliver when it really matters the most. And now that he's no longer in his prime, it's really going to show. Also, when you look at Embiid, as I don't want to knock him, he is one of the greatest players in the league right now, but he hasn't been able to deliver either, even with rosters that were arguably better seasons ago. So this is definitely one of those series where the lower seeded team can beat the higher seeded team in an upset. When you look at the Raptors, man, like I said, top to bottom, they have a better structured team. It's more balanced. You have a better coach, a coach that won't choke a 3-1 lead. So definitely this series.
Totally, man. Yeah, I would have to obviously. I mean, does the Nets count? Like, if they were to beat the Celtics, because yeah, they're the 7th seed, but come on, let's be real. If they're healthy, they're easily like a number 2 or 3 seed. So that would probably be my pick technically because they're a 7th seed. But I just want to get you guys' thoughts real quick. So we're gonna go through each of the first rounds here and give me your thoughts who's going to advance to the semifinal round. So we will start with, I will just go around the table here. So we'll start with Phoenix against this game that's going on right now. Who advances to the semifinal? Brian.
So either the Pelicans or the Clippers winning and they go up against Phoenix. I mean, Phoenix is easily going to get past both of those teams. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. You have Devin Booker, Chris Paul healthy. This team is like the quintessential NBA team. You have the point guard, or the point god as they call him. I mean, this guy, he put up 16 and 16 like in one of his first games back. Like, he is ready to go. And then you have DeAndre Ayton, who continues to get better every single year. They're not even going to work. Like, the first round is just a formality at this point for this team. Of course, they're going to be locked in against them. They're not going to underestimate their foe, but this is going to be an easy dub for the Suns. Honestly, a sweep, a 4-0 sweep for either team.
Okay, so I think it's safe to say Phoenix is going to advance, so I don't have to go around fully. Let's go with a little bit tougher one. Okay, let's go with Boston and the Celtics. PJ, who's your pick? Who's going to win that one?
I got Boston.
All right. I think the Nets are going to win in 7. How about you, Mark?
I think Boston in 6.
Whoa. Brian?
I'm going to have to give it to the Celtics in 7.
Oh, man. All right. I'm going to hold you guys to that next time we're on the show. I'm going to remember that. This is recorded. So, all right. Bucks and Bulls. Obviously, we all think Bucks are going to win. Miami, I think it's safe to say Miami is gonna take it over. Philly and Toronto. That's gonna be a good one. PJ, who wins that one?
I got Toronto. I think Toronto.
Toronto upset in 7 games.
No, I think fewer. I think it might be maybe 6. I'll say 6.
Ooh, okay, all right. Brian.
I'm with PJ. I say they upset in no less than 6 games.
Yikes. Mark?
I just want to say I think Bulls in 6, and and then hold me accountable to that. And then Philly in 5.
Ooh, Philly in 5. I have Philly in 7. So I think Philly just has a little bit more, but it's gonna be a tough series. And then who else do we have? Warriors and Nuggets. I have Warriors winning that one in 5. Mark?
Warriors in 4.
Ooh, sweep, huh? Brian?
It's going to be a gentleman's sweep. They're going the Nuggets will win the first game and then they'll lose the next 4.
All right. PJ?
I got Warriors in 6. I think it'll be a little bit tougher.
Gotcha. And the last matchup, or actually no, we still have Minnesota and Memphis. I'm gonna say Memphis in 7. PJ?
I'll say Memphis in 5.
Okay. Brian?
I have to say it's going to be hard fought. So Memphis in 7.
Mark?
Memphis in 5. They lose first game, win next 4.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and last but not least, Utah and Mavericks. I'm thinking Luka's not going to be 100%, so I have Jazz in 6. Mark?
I think Jazz in 7.
Jazz in 7. Okay. PJ?
I'm going to go Dallas in 6. I think chemistry issues with Utah. I got Dallas.
All right. And Brian, last one. Bring us
I'm going to have to agree. I'm going to have to agree with PJ. Like, the Jazz will win the first 2, and then they'll choke the next 4.
Ooh, okay.
Jazz
We'll
in
find
6.
out. We will find out. All right, guys. Thanks for your takes. Really do appreciate it. We're going to take one last break, and when we return, we're going to talk about Derek Carr's major contract extension, as well as tackle our question of the episode. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back, sports fans. I'm Michael Hudson coming to you from Seattle, Washington. So as Brian mentioned earlier in the show, the Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Derek Carr signed a huge extension with the team, which will give him another 3 years with the franchise. So Brian, we'll start with you since you are the biggest Raiders fan here. Was this a good move by the Raiders?
Yes. It was a good move. Like what was said in the story, good to elite quarterbacks they're hard to come by, man. They don't grow on trees. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen's don't grow on trees. Carr had his best statistical season to date. He led them to the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. It was either sign him or venture out into the unknown with drafting or signing a QB that isn't familiar with the system. Carr has been with the team for 8 years. I mean, from my point of view, it was kind of a no-brainer for them to sign him. You got Carr, and then you got Devontae Adams, who have played together before.
So, Mark, we'll go to you as Brian's trying to get back on here. Do you think Derek Carr has what it takes to lead the Raiders to a Super Bowl of any kind?
So definitely looking at Derek Carr's stats, especially within last regular season, we've seen that his stats are comparable to likes of Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. But the thing with number one with these types of quarterbacks is they also have top 10 defenses to back them up as well, to be able to support them in order to ensure that the other team isn't also scoring 30 to 40 points a game. And so I think Derek Carr definitely has the skills himself to lead the Raiders to have a great offense, especially with the weapons that he has around him. But it's going to be up to the defense to be able to hold their ground and to stop the other team from having a great game. So that way, Derek Carr, all he needs to worry about is just to keep a steady, consistent lead every game, and then that's leading to the playoffs, keep the same type of field going.
Hey, Brian, I know that you cut off earlier, but you're explaining about if this was a good move of the Raiders. You can continue.
Oh yeah, no, it was a fantastic move. Like what I said earlier in the story, when we started the show, good to elite quarterbacks are hard to come by. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, they don't grow on trees, man. Carr had his best statistical season to date. He led them to the playoffs for the first time in 5 years. It was, either sign him or venture out into the unknown with drafting or signing another QB that isn't familiar with the system, like Carr is, who has been with the team for 8 years now. You got Carr and Devontae Adams, who have played together before in college, so they should reunite that spark that they once had. So it's going to be really exciting, a 2022 season for Las Vegas Raiders fans. All of the pieces to a playoff hopeful have come together, and that final piece was Carr.
Great points. And going back to you, Mark, you were talking earlier about if Carr had what it takes to lead the Raiders to a Super Bowl. In addition to that, do you think he's going to have to step up big time for the Raiders, or is it more of kind of like an overall effort for them to get far this year?
I think he's more than stepped up as of late, especially like what Brian has said. He had his best statistical season as of late. And we can also do the whole Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers comparison with him as well. The times that they have went to the playoffs for the last 10 times, they've had at least, they've all been at least, for Tom Brady at least, top 10 defensive teams, whereas Aaron Rodgers has only had 2 top 10 defensive teams. And so if we can compare that for Derek Carr in terms of the Aaron Rodgers side, if their defense isn't a top 10 defense, he will have to do Aaron Rodgers type work where he's going to have to make miracles of what offense he has and hope that his defense can just pick up the slack.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I think it's at the end of the day, it's a pretty good move as well, because you want to keep, like what Brian mentioned earlier, you want to keep that connection of Devontae and Derek Carr, especially because they played in college. You want to keep that alive. And I think, surrounding great players with Carr, I mean, he's the type of quarterback that, he makes risky plays, but I think it's for the most part, it's because it's kind of like last ditch efforts and like trying to just make a miracle play, and he's just throwing to people. He has no choice but to throw it to people. But it's going to be crazy, man, because you have Devontae Adams, you have Hunter Renfrow, you have the tight end. They're going to have some major weapons on their hands. PJ, what are your thoughts on the Derek Carr signing?
I mean, I agree with you guys completely. I felt like it was a great signing. You're putting Derek Carr in a situation where now he has not just an awesome receiving core, like you just mentioned. You also have a solid running game, behind Jacobs, the rest of the running, the running backs. You have a pretty decent offensive line. Obviously, you can always make improvements. And then on top of that, their defense isn't, nothing to laugh at. Like, their defense is pretty solid, with like Max Crosby being there and everything like that. I think like he has the right pieces around him to make a deep run, but in terms of getting to the Super Bowl, I don't think so, just because of the fact that they play in a gauntlet of a division. You play in the AFC West. That's kind of brutal. I mean, you got Wilson there now, you have Justin Herbert, and obviously Patrick Mahomes, and then the AFC in general is going to be tough. And then I was looking earlier at like their schedule for next season. Even the teams that they play in, again, when they play against the NFC, is not any, it's not a light schedule. Like, it's going to be kind of rough, but at least they have their quarterback. They have pieces around them to make it happen. So I think they can make a deep run, but everything just kind of has to fall into place for them.
Yeah, absolutely, man. AFC West is loaded, and I think it's just past the NFC West for the best division, man. I mean, you have 4 great quarterbacks, and it's going to be a really exciting year. So thanks for your takes, guys. We're going to go ahead and switch over to our question of the episode. So just wanted to have a little fun tonight and play a little fantasy with you guys. So let's just say, for hypothetically, we could job shadow any current athlete for a day. That means, we can go with them to, practice, or go with them on game day. We just get to just be their shadow for just one day and one day only. So, Brian, I'll start with you, man.
I would job shadow with none other than Mr. GOAT himself, Mr. 7 Rings, the comeback kid, Tom Brady, the only player in NFL history to have 7 championship rings, the winningest player in NFL history, 44 years old and still playing at an elite level, man. And he's still playing. He is the number one guy that I would job shadow. Reason being, I just want to find out like what his routine is, what he does on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I heard the guy like sleeps 9 hours a day just so he can get enough rest for a successful game day. Like he does this every day, 24/7. Like, he has no rest in his workout. I don't know if you guys seen the movie Living with Yourself with Paul Rudd, but Tom Brady had a little cameo in it, and the whole story was about cloning yourself. And the main character goes into a place where you can clone yourself, and Tom Brady comes in as a cameo. He's like, "Oh, hey." He's like, "Have you been here before?" He's like, "Yeah, 7 times." 7 times for the 7 championship rings. So I'm like, maybe that's why he's so good. Like, there's no other QB that has ever done this before, ever. So, yeah, Tom Brady.
Nice pick, man. I love it. Mark, how about you, my man? Who are you going to job shadow for a day?
I'd love to job shadow Joel Embiid, and it's because I just honestly like big men, and it's and the way the way they play, it can be not as flashy, but very efficient, and that's what I love about the game of basketball. So like, for him at least, also how fancy he can be sometimes, and the way that he uses his abilities to be able to score on the basketball court. So I'd love to see how he works out, how he practices, and just preps for a game.
the process. Mark the process, Moronco. I love it. PJ, how about you, man? Who are you gonna drop shout out?
Oh, that's an easy one. Jimmy Butler. Just
Ooh.
to see like watching how intense his workouts are. I want to get on that level. I mean, the guy is ripped. I want to be able to get on that level, just to take a peek into what his workout regimen is. On top of that, he is now officially like a coffee connoisseur. I love coffee. He started his own coffee brand. I think that's really cool. Be able to drink coffee with him after workouts. And the fact that he lives in Miami, like,
Oh yeah,
that's like a vacation spot. I would love to job shout out Jimmy Butler.
dude, that would be amazing. Just Miami itself, just be on the beach and just hang out. For me, I'm gonna have to pick Tom Brady too. I mean, come on, how can you not? Just being able to just go inside and just see how he I would love to just see how he breaks down film, when it comes to football, just like reading the plays and just really pick his mind, and also like his leadership skills. I would love to see like how he improves upon that, especially like with his teammates and stuff like that. So maybe one day, guys, we'll be able to have the chance to do it. But until then, we will continue to bring you this show, everybody. But hey, guys, thanks for joining on the panel. Thanks for joining us, and everyone, thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure to visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com, and watch us on net25.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Eagle News to join the conversation. For EBC Sports International, I'm Michael Hudson. We'll see you next time, sports fans.